Hi, I'm Mark with CampgroundViews.com. Here to give you some tips on how to plan your next trip or your first trip to Yellowstone National Park. Your first destination should be CampgroundViews.com. Get here and start out by looking for Yellowstone National Park. It is, as the name suggests, in Wyoming. I don't know why Yellowstone suggests that, but Wyoming does. Located northwestern quadrant of Wyoming, the park is an excellent destination for campers. Why is that? Because there are no towns in Yellowstone National Park. It is a national park. By definition, there should not be any towns in the park area. Meaning that for you, me, and everybody else, tent camping and RV camping is a great option. First thing I'm going to do is widen my radius here a little bit and give you an idea of just how great this place is to go camping. Within a 100-mile radius of Yellowstone National Park, there are 162 campgrounds and RV parks. You have the National Park Service run campgrounds located within the park. That Fishing Bridge is a full hookup RV park. It's more of a parking lot, but you can see it for yourself. There's also Bridge Bay, which is tent and RV. Grant Village, tent and RV. Lewis Lake, tent and RV. Madison, same thing. Most of the ones outside of Fishing Bridge tend to cater towards smaller RVs and tent and truck campers. If you fit into that realm, then these are great options for you. The nice thing about the campgrounds is you can do the loop road on a very slow pace. We're talking about 30 miles between here. You can check out all the sites through the day, camp at night, continue on and do a nice loop through Yellowstone National Park. Just south of Yellowstone National Park is Grand Teton National Park, specifically in the Moran area of Wyoming. This area is a must visit if you're coming here for the first time and maybe the only time, and allows you to see some amazing sights looking towards the west. The Grand Tetons are a majestic peak of mountains, and there are national park campgrounds within this area. The most famous and probably one of the most scenic campgrounds in the overall area is Jenny Lake Campground. This one is accessible to tents and small RVs. We're talking Class Bs, truck campers, but this photo should give you an idea of just how and why this campground is a must stay. Look at that view. And as you can see, this is suburban in the site, so it gives you an idea of the depth of that site. We have video of it. You can see more of the sites. Just simply pull it up and watch the quick video. So overall, the national park campgrounds are pretty nice. The trick are the Forest Service campgrounds. Those are a unique option that allows you to discover the national park without dealing with the heavy crowds. This Atherton Creek campground is a very scenic location. Also, it overlooks a lake. It's accessible again to RVs and tent campers, and it's in the national forest versus the national park. Fees are a little bit lower. There tends to be less park rangers roaming around in that area, so it just ends up being a little bit more of a rustic feel. So you do have Forest Service campgrounds surrounding the national parks. So the question is, where do we go? Where do we say we're going to Yellowstone? You really have a few choices. Jackson, also known as Jackson Hole, West Yellowstone, Gardner, Red Lodge, Cody, and Dubois. The two more popular locations, maybe three, but the two most popular locations for RVers and tent campers are West Yellowstone and Cody. Jackson is a popular area to visit because a lot of folks that stay in hotels and such head to Jackson and Jackson Hole. But the smart RVers try to avoid that region. There's actually not a lot of choices in Jackson for RVing. The main choice is the Virginian Lodge, which is a nice location. The Kudar Motel offers locations for long-term stays. And the Fireside Resort, which is a newer park. It's nice, and that's located a little bit outside of Jackson. Otherwise, you're kind of in a rural area. The KOA is south by about 20 miles, and then you have the National Forest and National Park campgrounds. For that reason, Jackson's not really a big destination for tent and RVers. But if you go over to West Yellowstone, this map will kind of give you an idea of why West Yellowstone is such a popular spot for RVers and tent campers, and It's simply choice. West Yellowstone itself, there are 8 RV parks within the small little city here. There's Verizon coverage here, grocery, shopping, all sorts of stuff, plus you're right next to the entrance to Yellowstone. If you go a little bit outside of West Yellowstone, you've got Forest Service campgrounds. The 2 KOAs are to the west of town. You've got some private RV parks north of the lake, and then Island Park, Idaho. I mentioned Island Park, Idaho because this is another option for folks, especially if you're on a budget and you want to stay for a long period of time. You can stay out in Island Park, significantly less expensive than in West Yellowstone, and you're only 20 miles away. Google centers Island Park down here, but technically this entire region here is considered Island Park. So you've got Red Rock RV Resort, which is a nice place. You've got a state park at Henry's Lake State Park with full hookups. And you've got another full hookup RV park right next to the road in Valley View RV Park. All those offer a budget-conscious way to visit the national park from the West Yellowstone side. And from here, West Yellowstone, you're 30 minutes into the Loop Road, and you can do a nice little loop around Yellowstone. Up to Gardner. Gardner is in Montana, and this is accessible through Livingston. In fact, Livingston is the better-known location here. There are some full hookup RV parks up in Livingston. It's a ways from here down into Yellowstone. Gardner itself, there are some RV parks here. There's also some there's some Forest Service campgrounds. And the two I want to talk about real quickly is Bear Creek and Timber Camp Campground. The reason I mention both of those is that they are free to camp at. They're accessible for tents and small truck campers and small Class Bs. It's a 9-mile dirt road climb. What makes those unique is that they are pretty much deserted. There's not a lot of traffic that gets up there. And they're advantageous because it's 9 miles from Gardner, which is a mile from the park, so you're 10 miles away from the national park. Free camping at 9,000 feet elevation, so when it's hot, it's nice and cool up there. It's a great little spot if you're looking to save some money and stay in a unique location near Yellowstone. Next up is Red Lodge as an access point into Yellowstone. Red Lodge is an interesting city that basically had a road built into Yellowstone National Park because they knew they were in the middle of nowhere and it was the only way to get people in there. The road that was built is called Beartooth Highway. It is a must drive, and you see these switchbacks here on the map. That is the side of a cliff that road is going up. It's majestic, it's beautiful, and there's all these Forest Service campgrounds right along the base here, including a dispersed campsite back here off the Road 2005. There's also a private RV park right here outside of Red Lodge, which is a nice place. They got some sites that back up to the water there. And then you can drive this whole loop, 212, all the way up through Cook City, Silvergate. There's Forest Service campgrounds all along here, and then down into Yellowstone. The only caveat about that location is that this is a day drive right here. You don't want to be staying here and driving into Yellowstone and seeing everything because it's really a long ways from the geysers and everything else. But for a destination, just to see that in a day or two, it's a great spot to be. Next up is the other popular area to discover Yellowstone through, and that is Cody, Wyoming. Cody is the major access point for folks coming from the east coast of the U.S., and it offers private RV parks in town, lots of museums, shopping, gas. It's actually one of the more reasonably priced locations outside of the park for all those options, food, fuel, and stays. You also have the 2 state park campgrounds at the reservoir, both accessible for all size RVs and tents. There's some private campgrounds heading up US 14 into the park, and then you have a number of Forest Service campgrounds all along the route leading up into Yellowstone. And as I mentioned, this is a constant climb all the way up to the top of the ridge, and this valley here tends to channel weather, so you get a lot of scenic clouds over the peaks. It's a very, very pretty drive, and then you drop down to the lake into Yellowstone. The next lesser known access point into Yellowstone is the small town of Dubois. The reason why this is less known is it's a bit harder to get to. It's not quite as quick of a route. As you can see, to access here, you're going to come through the 80 into Rawlins and then climb up. It just ends up being a long drive, but it's worth it. There's 2 great RV parks right here in Dubois, this Longhorn Ranch and the KOA. Plus this town is kind of like a mini Jackson. It's got that Old West feel, but it doesn't have all the people, so it's kind of a cool little spot to stay. And from here you climb up this US 26 to the top of a ridge and then drop down into Moran, which gives you access to both Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Park. Great thing about this drive is as you come over this ridge and drop down into the valley, you're presented with a majestic view of the Teton Mountains as you're looking to the west. It's very pretty. Our tip along here is this Falls Campground, which is a Forest Service campground, no hookups. It's accessible for any size RV, and there's hiking trails over to the waterfall, and this is the view from the campground looking up towards the mountains. It's a very, very pretty campground. So there you have it. That's your access points into Yellowstone National Park. Again, Jackson, West Yellowstone, Gardner, Red Lodge, Cody, and Dubois. Giving you a brief little overview on what to do in those different areas, where to stay at, kind of our tips like Island Park. They offer you access to the park, and if you've driven 500 miles from LA to get here, they offer you an entrance into the national parks. Obviously, if you can, stay at some of the campgrounds, both in the national park and in the Forest Service, but also there's some great RV parks around. Enjoy your trip to Yellowstone National Park. Feel free to ask us any questions over at campgroundviews.com and use our resources. I hope you notice that as I'm flipping through, all these campgrounds have pictures and videos with them. We're the great resource that you've been looking for. Plan your next trip here and go and have fun. Thank you and goodbye.